Welcome to the Startup of the Year podcast, where each episode we showcase exciting new companies from around the world. This podcast is produced by Established, creators of the Startup of the Year program. Established is focused on helping organizations with their innovation, startup, and communication strategies.
Welcome back to the Startup of the Year podcast. I'm Frank Gruber, the co-founder and co-CEO of Established, co-founder of Established Ventures, and the team behind the Startup of the Year community and this very podcast. Thank you for being here in the new year. Appreciate you, and I hope you had a good, happy new year. We're excited to be back, and on this episode, I've got a couple people. It's back-to-back, and it's in line with what we were doing at the Consumer Electronics Show here in Las Vegas this past week. So on this episode of the Startup of the Year podcast, I'm going to be chatting with Robbie Cabral, who's the CEO and founder of BenjiLock, which is redefining the personal security experience through fingerprint hybrid technology with consumers in mind. They're looking forward to expanding that outside of just fingerprints. And for those not familiar, BenjiLock was actually a Startup of the Year alumni. They also have been featured on Shark Tank, which is pretty cool. And we're going to get a chance to talk to them a little bit about that experience here shortly. It's a stacked episode. I've also got another guest as well. We've got Evelyn Tichenor. She's a VP of Sales and Partnerships at GoodMaps. And GoodMaps is a startup that pitched live at CES 2023. They actually were the winner of the CTA Foundation annual pitch competition at Eureka Park and did a fantastic job. Evelyn actually did the pitch. I'm going to talk to her a little bit more about what GoodMaps is, and it's pretty interesting. It's a positioning technology that allows those that are maybe blind or first responders or others to be able to find their way inside. So it's almost like Google Maps for inside or indoors. Pretty cool stuff. I'm going to have a conversation very shortly with Evelyn. Before we do, though, I'm going to, obviously, we'd like to shine a light on different companies that are a part of the Startup of the Year community. So today's episode, we've got a company that is Plain Sight, which is networking reimagined. Plain Sight ensures that everyone who visits their digital or physical spaces will make a relevant connection. That is super important. Relationships very much matter in the world of both business life and everything else. So check out Plain Sight if you get a chance. Just go over to www.plainsight.app. Again, plainsight.app, and you can learn more. Okay, now let's jump into that conversation with Robbie Cabral. All right, I'm here with Robbie. Thanks so much for joining. I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Frank. I appreciate it myself too.
So tell me a little bit more about, for those listeners unfamiliar with what you're up to, a little bit more about BenjiLock and what you've been doing as the founder and CEO.
Well, it's been exciting. As you know, it's funny. The story has been a great long journey. As a matter of fact, actually, I remember to this day that BenjiLock was part of the whole Startup of the Year competition. And we got to the point of being in the whole finalist part of the show. And I remember the next day we got picked up by the whole Shark Tank platform. And I remember speaking with you guys, and you guys say, "Hey, Robbie, go do your Shark Tank next tomorrow, and we'll continue this journey together." So
yep, that was pretty exciting.
Yeah, it's been very exciting. The whole platform of CES and Startup of the Year and the Shark Tank as well, and then after that, the partnership with Kevin O'Leary. So we decided to license the technology to Hampton Products, which basically they're the makers of the Brinks locks. So it actually made sense for me because then I'm able to now produce the product, distribution and everything. And to this day, it's been great. Great relationship. And now BenjiLock is opening the door to a whole licensing strategy in the new year.
Oh, very exciting. A lot going on, it sounds like. And just to kind of dial it back, how did you come up with this idea for BenjiLock, and what were the kind of use cases, I guess you could say, were you thinking when you did come up with it?
Well, what's interesting is that the idea actually came up, believe it or not, I never even thought about creating a product or creating a company. But, sometimes as entrepreneurs, things hit you and you have to kind of react. And at that time, I got laid off from work. And the same day I got laid off from work, my younger daughter, Livia, was born. And through that process, I went through a little bit of a depression and overweight and all that. And, I said to myself, okay, let me do the best that I can for myself and my family. So, I started, doing everything around the house. And lo and behold, I started going to the gym at night. and one gentleman left the key inside the locker. So, the gentleman comes in, the manager has to bolt cut it and drill it. And I'm seeing all this in front of me. And I'm like, wow, how come there's not a lock that you can open with your fingerprint, but also with a key? That was the whole idea. And that's kind of how BenjiLock started. I will tell you, that's probably like the first use case, a lock for heading out to the gym. And lo and behold, I had no idea that in my hands, I actually have a whole, bunch of use cases, starting with what we have right now. So for example, like the original BenjiLock, you can use it for your gym locker, work locker, school locker. But then we also have our travel lock, which is TSA approved, which every time you're traveling, that's like my go-to. It's like basically our number one seller when it comes to the world of travel. And then the same technology, we put it in a bike lock for bikes, and also the door for the home, and a small little lock for on the go. So as you can see, that's only in the world of locks. So it's exciting, It
is exciting. I mean, that use case it really resonates with me. I was just thinking about even this weekend. I went to a place I was skiing, and they had ski lockers, and I was you can never remember the combination. It's like any lock I ever have, I'm like, oh, what is it? And it gives you that anxiety. It takes you back to high school when you're like just first ever got your locker for school or whatever. You're like, I can never remember it. So tell us a little bit more how it works exactly. So how is this better than those combination locks that you were all familiar with?
No, I agree with you. The first thing that came to mind for me and for actually the people that I kind of interviewed before even starting this product was that, hey, I always tend to forget my combinations. I always tend to forget where I put my keys. And for me, it was like, wow, at the time, I remember, I think it was like the iPhone 5 that started using biometrics on their phones. I said to myself, that's kind of how the world is going. Everything is touch, biometrics, and, that kind of opened up a whole world of opportunities for me. But then again, I've always learned that you have to always keep it simple, stupid in a way. Because if you start adding too much to the technology or to the product, then it makes it very difficult for the consumer to understand it. So right now, the product is very simple. You still have a traditional key. You can set it up with your finger. And then on behalf of that, actually, all of the products right now to this point are non-connected. So that's a big thing for me because it's very private. It's very personal, which is something very interesting. You have a whole thing, a spectrum of people that love connectivity. But then there's a whole platform of people that say, hey, I actually love what you're doing, not connected, private. So in this day and age, it's actually exciting too.
That is interesting. I mean, it's like the opposite of what you'd think with all the connected devices, but you do the minute you try to like hook your phone or your home up to a connected device. I always think about, ooh, is that going to open the door for literally people opening my front door or turning on my washing machine or something like that? So it definitely does make you question that. So that's a good idea for you to like not connect them and keep it really tight from that perspective. So yeah, I mean, it's funny. I don't have one of your locks, but I had them on my wish list this year for the holidays. I did not get one, so now it's still on my list. I'm gonna have to go out and snag one because I did have that oh shoot moment the other day, and I didn't even think about the traveling component of it. Having a traveling version of BenjiLock does seem really compelling, especially if you're going overseas or something like that. So very cool. I love it. So tell us a little bit more about the, are there other competitors jumping in here? Like, what has it been like for you to navigate that landscape?
Well, it's been interesting, when the product started in Eureka Park, basically.
So CES, for those unfamiliar, CES, right?
CES, yeah. So basically, when you exhibit there the first time, you really get approached by the whole world. I mean, you name it, from manufacturers of China to, it's basically the whole world. But then, it opens up the whole opportunity of, hey, there's something new here. Why haven't other companies have jumped into that category? So there's been competition since we launched. And then a lot of them have kind of flaked out. And then there's two major companies in the world of locks that are basically out there. And they're both of them, I think one of them is a public company, and another was a big private company. So, which is actually good. I feel like competition is always good. Because then if you're kind of like the only one, then then there's not a lot of use case for it. But I see it exciting. I'm very excited to the point that right now BenjiLock basically owns that 80% of the U.S., Canada, and Mexico when it comes to the whole world of electronics and fingerprint locks market. So we are a little bit ahead in the ball game, so that's good.
Wow, that's fantastic. And how long ago did you start? 2017, right? Was it 2017, 2016, something like that?
Well, it's interesting. So the idea actually started in 2014.
Okay.
And the whole prototype development was 3 years for me, because basically I'm not an engineer. So I kind of decided to kind of assemble a team and let's put all these things together because as you may know, you may not be the best at one thing, but others could help you out in that arena. So from 2014 to 2017, it was the whole prototype development.
Yep.
Then the Shark Tank and all that scenario came up around October of 2017. And in reality, the first iteration of a live product didn't come up to August of 2018.
Mm-hmm.
So in reality, we've been live since 2018. But as you know, the first 2 years were great. And then COVID really hit us hard.
Right.
And that whole year was kind of like a lost year in a way.
Yep.
And then now we're finally kind of getting back on track. So
wow.
It looks like I've been on this for a long time already, but it just feels very fresh too.
Yeah. Only a couple of years because of the COVID years in there, it feels like. And obviously you had that experience with Shark Tank. I want to hear about that. How was your experience with Shark Tank? How did you get connected with them and what was the since then and you mentioned Kevin O'Leary. Talk a little bit more about that experience and everything.
Yeah, no, I think it all kind of, it all connected. And I'm a believer that things happen for a reason. I remember at that time I was focusing on, hey, where do I unveil this prototype? And the timing was tight. Budget was tight on my end because I was unemployed. So I was able to do a lot of freelance work and use my savings and kind of rack up credit cards to the moon. But finally I said, let's take this leap of faith. Let's do it at Eureka Park at CES. And while doing that show, I guess Shark Tank had a casting call. And I'll tell you to this day, Frank, and I don't see the show. It's something that I never even heard of until people came at CES and say, hey, this looks like a great product for Shark Tank. You should try it. They actually have a Shark Tank casting call in the corner at the Venetian, and you should go try it out. And a lot of people told me that, and I'm like, well, never heard of the show, never seen it, but you know what? Let's try it. Let's give it an opportunity. And if it works, great. If not, forget about it. Lo and behold, I did the Shark Tank casting call there for like a 2-minute thing. And then a couple weeks later, I got a call and said, hey, we're interested in your product, your story, how you all came about. Let's see what's next. So that was like a whole 6-month process on a back and forth. And then the opportunity came and I said, why not? Let's do it. And it all worked out. Out of the 5 sharks, 4 went in. And then one of the things that Kevin really told me was that, hey, Robbie, I'll go all in with you if you're interested in licensing. And I said, hey, I got companies interested. The problem is that I really want to keep the BenjiLock name because a lot of the times you license and what happens is that a lot of the times they just shelf the technology, like music labels, they shelf an artist, never comes out. And I felt like BenjiLock was special because at CES, people said, hey, that could be the next Fitbit of locks or Beats by Dre of locks. And I felt like I had something special and I wanted to keep the name. So as long as we kept it, then I was all in the whole licensing play.
Cool. So tell me about the name. Where does it come from, BenjiLock?
That's funny. So actually, BenjiLock came in the living room out of my house. Just discussing names and I used to be in a band back in the day, so music was my thing. And I remember when you used to be in a band, you have to like do a whole list of names for the band and all that. Right. And I thought, well, let me make a whole list of names for this lock. And Benji came up, and then my wife goes, hey, why not BenjiLock? And I'm like, you know what? That's actually interesting. Let's go with that one. And it worked out because I feel like the name is catchy, it's simple, it's fun. And one quick thing about this is that one of the major customers for BenjiLock is Ace Hardware. So Ace Hardware does a lot of trade shows, And a lot of the Ace Hardwares, your local Ace Hardware and all that, they're actually owned by families, a lot of mom and pops and all that. And when you attend the show, all these mom and pops are walking by, and then as soon as you see all the kids, they're right away going in, hey, there's Benji, that's Benji, I love Benji. So I felt like, okay, that's the generation that is up and coming, is the same generation of my kids, and why not give them the stuff that they're really into. So I think that the name was ended up working out.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. And I actually have seen your products at Ace Hardware locally in a couple different Ace Hardwares. So definitely familiar with that they do carry it everywhere. So it's really great to see. And obviously have the connection with you and say, oh, I know who created that product. It's pretty cool.
Don't worry,
okay.
you'll get a couple of samples now this coming week when we meet each other at CES.
Okay, cool, very cool. Thank you. And so let's keep going here. So so you then out of Shark Tank, you got picked out of Shark Tank, which I'm sure they talked to thousands of people, and now you get to go on the show. How did that experience go, and what was that like?
Oh, that was great. Tell you the truth, I believe it's like 50 or 55,000 applications that they do
Holy cow.
every season. So it's incredible. I mean,
Yep.
I gotta give it to them. I don't know how. I think they're like on season 14 now, and
Yep.
I was like season 9, and that show just keeps on going and
Keeps
going.
going.
So good,
Yep.
good for them. I mean, but yeah, no, the show it's exhilarating. You get nervous. I remember that the day that I had to go pitch, I actually didn't eat for a whole day. Uh, I feel like, because I didn't know what was the outcome. And then one of my right hands at the time, he was telling me, hey, Robbie, I don't know if you should pitch because, you don't have a really final product. You don't have any sales. And, I don't know if this is going to work out for you. And I'm like, you know what? I'm a believer that you got to take the risk. If it works out, great. But if not, at least you put it out there. And that's always been kind of like a meaning for myself to tell other companies that are up and coming that sometimes you don't know your route, because at the time I thought, I'm gonna do this myself and I'm gonna go recruit investment and I'm gonna build this product and all this stuff. And then I'm thinking, the licensing path ended up being the route that I wasn't even thinking, but it actually worked out best for me. So you never know. And I think that the Shark Tank platform really helped me on that.
Yeah, so explain that a little bit more. So did you right away then you had Kevin O'Leary interested from Shark Tank and then invested in it and partnered with you to grow it, or how did that go?
Yeah, to this day, actually, Kevin been very hands-on. Any opportunity that kind of Kevin sees on his plate, that he'll flip it over. And one of the things that he told me was that, hey, the beauty of licensing is that, hey, put it this way, Robbie, at least you don't have to put that big investment in manufacturing, distribution, engineering, and all that. You have the idea, you already build it. Now it's time for, find that right partner to kind of bring it to market. And that's what we did with Hampton Products International, kind of like that first partner in the whole licensing strategy that, hey, now we got this idea, this prototype. Now let's bring it to market together. And, and now I'm very excited for this new year because the same strategy that we've been doing, now we're going to open it up globally. So it's going to be exciting.
Definitely. And definitely love understanding how you built that relationship, because I think relationships are sometimes is undervalued, right? That people don't realize, there's a lot of emphasis put on venture and raising money and all that, but not so much necessarily on partnerships. And so talk to me a little bit more about how you were able to, get that partnership with Hampton, and how did you connect with that team or whatnot, and then how that's been going, I guess. And it sounds like you've got now additional opportunities, but just like understanding that specific one, how that's worked out as far as, how it all came together.
No, I agree. One of the things that I kind of always say to myself and say to others is that, kind of like what you guys do with Startup of the Year, like what the CES does with Eureka Park and other trade shows, throughout the year, is that you have to put yourself out there. And no matter, the outcome, and sometimes you think that, hey, I don't know if this is going to work out or if I should be there or not, just put yourself out there. You never know who's going to be walking the aisle watching. And at the time, when I exhibit at CES, one of the shareholders at Hampton saw the booth and saw, hey, there's a kid downstairs that has the whole booth packed up, and he's selling a product that should be in our kind of field. Why are we spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on a booth and it's completely empty? And there's a kid downstairs killing it. What's going on? So that was the first flag that right away makes someone at the company at Hampton pick up the phone and call me like a month later out of the blue. Someone rang my phone and say, hey, this is so and so, and we are Hampton products. You may have not heard of us. And I'm thinking to myself, actually, I haven't heard. Is it Hampton Hotels or Hampton, Bay or whatever, the fan? And they're like, no, we're basically known because we build all the Brinks locks, and we actually license the Brinks brand, and we bring this product to market. And someone at our top head honcho said, hey, we need to reach out to that kid because there's something special there. And so that's kind of how that relationship started, and to this day it's been great. No regrets at all. And I think the whole relationship base, it really goes a long way, Frank. I gotta tell you that there's been a lot of relationships that we built out through the trade shows throughout the years that a lot of the times you don't see that relationship really go to fruition years later. So that's kind of how the relationship with Hampton was built. And then Kevin came into play after the Shark Tank show. The CEO of Hampton said, hey, we've been in talk with that kid. We should now partner up with Robbie because now he has Kevin on his back. And so that really kind of helped too. Having Kevin on my side really kind of helped move things very fast with Hampton. And to this day, we were able to launch a whole portfolio of products.
Wow. I'm impressed. I mean, the fact you answered the phone. A lot of people don't answer the phone anymore. Number one. I mean, you got a random call and you picked it up, and it happened to be somebody that was really interested in what you're doing. So that's fantastic, and it seems like it's worked out really well. So excited to hear more about what you're ready to do here next once you're ready to talk about it. But after the show, you touched on a little bit more about Startup of the Year. You were involved. Tell us a little bit more about what that's like, and you even got a chance to come back last year and be a part of it as well. So I want a little bit more about your experience with Startup of the Year.
Oh, I think it's been amazing. I think what you guys have been able to do, I believe it was first the whole platform of TechCo, and then now it's established. I just feel like you guys have taken it to another level because, it gives the opportunity to a lot of startups and a lot of up and coming products and up and coming ideas to kind of get yourself out there. And I love what you guys were doing this past year. So many great companies, so many great ideas. And it kind of took me back to 2017 because I remember Startup of the Year in San Francisco.
Yep.
I think I told you this story that I literally left my home around 3 a.m. I rented a little enterprise car, and I put all my stuff in there, and I drove 5 hours to the Bay Area.
Wow.
Managed to do this show, and then from there I drove back same night and came home the next morning because I had to take my kids to school. And a lot of people don't see that from a lot of companies because in my case it's kind of like I'm a one-man army in a way, but that's why I always tell some other companies that you might have a huge team or smaller team and all that, and I think there's nothing that you can't really achieve.
Yep.
If you put yourself into it, everything is possible. And I think what you guys are doing with the whole Startup of the Year and doing it every year, I think is something to look forward for a company that wants to get themselves out there.
Well, I appreciate that. And I love that story about how you loaded it all up and did it all in a day, basically day trip it, and head back. Because you have, you're a father, you got to take care of your responsibilities at home as well. So I really appreciate that and respect it. So thanks for sharing that story with everyone. And, I know we're about at time here, but I wanted to ask you a little bit more. You shared some interesting lessons and advice, but you really have nailed it with the licensing side of things. And I wondered if there was anything from that experience that because it didn't sound like you were like an expert on licensing going in. So I just wanted to understand, is there anything that you've learned along the way that you're like, oh, this is probably the most valuable thing I've learned about licensing, or, this is the one thing I would take away from if I'm building a product or I'm building a service or whatever that could be licensable. This is the thing you should know.
Well, one of the things that I learned is that partnering with other companies is not bad at all. Sometimes we think as entrepreneurs that you got to do it your way or the highway. And believe it or not, that's why I'm a believer in sharing what you have. And maybe 100 pitches go in and 99.9 don't go in, but that 0.1 will work. And and I think in this perspective, what I've learned is, for example, in my case, startup company, small, very fast pace, you license to a company that, no disrespect, but you're now getting into that whole corporate world. So people think differently. And now you're kind of letting your baby be touched by everyone, basically. And sometimes you have to be open-minded. And so I learned a lot throughout these years that it can't be only about yourself. You also have to put yourself in your partner's shoes and whatever they're going through within the company, within the personnel, within manufacturing, distribution. And I've learned a lot because I had no idea how a lot of these things work. And now I've kind of become an expert on every little step that so it's been kind of like a school session for me too. Learning the ropes of taking your product to market and the beauty of licensing and partnering with other companies. So that kind of really taught me a lot now onto my next step of this licensing journey. And I think that licensing is not bad at all. Now, the only thing I have to say that, because I do see a lot of inventors and companies come in and say, hey, I have this idea, what do I do about it? And, an idea is great to have. The issue is that you can't really sit down and just say, hey, well, let me sit down and just collect a check. Because the thing is that's not how the world works. What happens is that a lot of these major companies, they have thousands of SKUs already, thousands of brands already to take care of. You're just one part of this whole journey. So if you don't show up and you don't put your effort into it, the team member or the product developer that is working on that, if they don't see that same enthusiasm or that same, power up in a way, they just drop it. So I've been blessed that, I'm very passionate about my product, about the technology and all that. So I'm always pushing it. And I think they saw a big value in that.
That's great advice. And thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate you being here today and looking forward to seeing you at CES here soon. For those listening, we're going to catch up at CES with the CTA Foundation is having their pitch event. And we're going to actually bring the CTA Foundation pitch winner on this same episode. So they're going to be with you here on this one, Robbie. I don't know if you knew that or not. But we're going to, any special plugs or things that you'd like to share about, any special things that you'd like to share about your, product or anything coming up, or how people can get in contact with you if they wanted to connect?
No, likewise, Frank. I mean, I'm excited to, take our flights to CES. To tell you the truth, last year CES was very slow. And, the whole thing with Omicron at the time, but now this year, It looks like we're really, it's getting really back on track.
Yeah.
There's a lot of excitement throughout the show, and I'm proud to be, with you guys throughout that whole CTA Foundation and the pitch contest. And we got some great partnerships there with Canon as well that is going to join in. And then from my plate, I'm excited. Anybody can reach me through BenjiLock.com or LinkedIn or my personal email. It's all around the web there. And I'm excited to showcase what BenjiLock is coming beyond the fingerprint, because that's one really cool thing that we've been working out the past couple years, that the technology of BenjiLock will go beyond the fingerprint. So, it will include facial, voice, vein, palm, you name it. So there's going to be different ways of unlocking the technology moving forward into different categories. So I'm excited to what's ahead.
Wow, that's really exciting, and looking forward to seeing that all those different capabilities, and appreciate you being here today. Really, I love your story and your enthusiasm and the fact that you threw yourself in and you follow the motto of just get it going, get it started, and get out there and do it. And you've learned it along the way. So I love that. So Robbie, thanks so much for being here today.
Hey, thank you, Frank, and keep it up. I love what you guys are doing with Startup of the Year, and I can't wait to attend this new year in 2023. I'm sure it's going to be very exciting.
Yep, definitely. Thanks so much. I love that conversation. I love Robbie and the way he can, he just shares his experiences so well. And hopefully you learned something from him. And I really enjoyed talking to him. So it's good to catch up. All right, now let's jump into that conversation with Evelyn Tichenor from GoodMaps, live from CES 2023. All right, I'm here with Evelyn. She's with GoodMaps. They just won yesterday at the CTA Foundation pitch competition here at CES 2023. Evelyn, thanks so much for joining.
Thank you. So GoodMaps is an indoor digital mapping company with a focus on developing digital twins of the indoor spaces and making the indoors more accessible, safe, and welcoming for people to come in and navigate and find things that they need. And so our core product is GoodMaps Explore, our indoor navigation app. It uses camera-based positioning, which is very unique in that it doesn't require us to install any equipment, and it can pinpoint a user's location down to 3 feet. So the app is available on iOS and Android, and it's completely free to the end user.
So tell me a little bit more about like where the idea came from, the origin story of GoodMaps, and kind of where it started and where it currently is and where it's going.
Yeah, absolutely. So GoodMaps was born out of American Printing House for the Blind about 4 years ago. And the beginning focus was expanding accessible indoor navigation for people who are blind or low vision. APH had this idea and this mission of doing that. And so they introduced GoodMaps and developed GoodMaps to further that mission. And so we started out with realizing there are not really accurate indoor maps at all, and you need accurate indoor maps to provide accurate indoor navigation. So we developed our indoor mapping solution, and then we realized, well, there's not really that many good indoor positioning technologies. You have to install a lot of equipment, and a lot of buildings don't want that. They don't want to have to maintain any equipment. And so we developed our camera-based positioning technology that allows us to not install any equipment. So it's been a few years of really trying to scale the technology so that it can be easily implemented. And right now, we are working in U.S., Canada, Mexico, and the UK. And in 2023, our goals are to really expand into Europe and the UK, and specifically in retail and transportation. Those are really big markets for us.
So what does an implementation look like? Because, I mean, you obviously can't just canvas every building around the world. That would take forever. So tell me a little more what that looks like and kind of what you're tackling first and foremost from a priority perspective.
Yeah, so from a priority perspective, we are doing the mapping internally right now. So in the short term, we are still doing the implementation where we basically send one of our mappers that's on our team to a site to do the scan of the building, and then we create the maps internally. But as you know, like, you have to send someone on site. And so our goal is for venues to be able to map their entire building with either an iPhone or a device that we can send to them, so that it's easier and more scalable. And then eventually, I would say this will be in 2024, we will be able to consume other people's LiDAR data and outputs and run our models on that information, so we don't even have to do any scanning at all.
So you mentioned LiDAR data. Some folks may not be follow through with what that really is. So can you kind of high level explain the LiDAR data and how you're using it and how you've used that to build out this product?
Yes, so LiDAR data is basically a lot of little points. It's a point cloud that make up a 3D model. You can think of the matrix of a space. And it's a lot of little points that are building this model, and the data is used for us to create an accurate map, because floor plans are not accurate. And this LiDAR data gives us millimeter accuracy of where the walls are and where everything is in the building. So that's how we're using the LiDAR data at the moment.
All right, so here at CES, you probably met a lot of people, probably talked to a lot of different groups. What's been the biggest thing you've had come out of, obviously aside from winning, come out of CES?
Well, one of the great things is this was our very first time at being able to do a live demo at CES. So in the past years, it used to take us a lot longer to do the scans, a lot longer to build the maps, and we were able to build a map on the fly at CES this year. I scanned half of the North Hall in about 5 minutes, and then our mapping team was able to turn the maps around in 2 hours, and we had live navigation available. And this was a dream that I've had from last year. So that was by far the biggest success, being able to do a map in real time. In terms of partnerships and different groups, there's a lot of people in robotics that are using LiDAR, and they need maps of buildings so that they can, get the food delivery robots or the autonomous wheelchairs where they need to go. And there's a lot of these partnerships that I think will be incredible to work with, and using each other's LiDAR data to further indoor navigation and the products that they're using as well.
That makes a lot of sense to me. I also was thinking about how you might use this like at an airport, or if you're, museum or things like that. Are you doing those types of partnerships as well?
Yes, so we work with airports, museums, universities, hotels, large conference centers like CES, not this big. And we have a variety of clients, and airports is a really good case because it's difficult to find your gate. They're constantly changing security checkpoints, all of that type of stuff. And so this is available in, we have Portland Airport, and we're actually launching that on Monday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Portland, Oregon, or Maine?
Yes,
Okay.
Portland, Oregon, yeah.
I live in Maine, so that's why I was very curious. All right, and also, so you've got that going on, and then I guess anything like that you've learned along the way. You've been doing this for a few years now, and just want to understand anything. We've got startup founders listening. Anything you've learned along the way that building this product and building it out.
Well, we've learned, I would say, two big things. One, indoor navigation can be used by anyone. And, we started out 4 people who are blind or low vision, and we're building a new version of the app that's being released in April that will have augmented reality experience and visual maps. And so we really realized that indoor navigation can be used by a variety of people for a variety of use cases. And then secondly, the maps, the foundational LiDAR maps are so applicable in other ways, such as facility management, working with these robotics companies, asset tracking. And so our goal after we roll out this new version of Explore in April is to start exploring some of those other solutions to layer on top of our maps.
Okay. I guess anything else you're looking for that when you came to CES, or any other things you want to share with the audience that's listening? Maybe there's something out there you need help with, or you're stuck on.
Yeah, I would say we're checking out all the LiDAR, like the new LiDAR, different LiDAR specs. It's constantly getting more affordable and better. So we're checking out all the new LiDAR. So if there's any people out there with new LiDAR devices, we're always interested in that. And we're also just interested in partners, for us, being able to share mapping data for other use cases helps our mission, because it helps more people with disabilities be able to access buildings that are mapped and navigate in them. So just collaboration and partnerships. If there's anybody out there that has ideas on how they can utilize indoor maps, I would love to talk.
All right, and we didn't cover it really, but your price point. How do you make money from a mapping product, right? There's a couple different ways. I just want to make sure everyone who's listening understands.
Yeah, absolutely. So the pricing is based on square footage. So the venue owner pays for their building to be mapped. There's an upfront fee to do the mapping and the scanning and build the map, and then a yearly license fee. And that's charged based on square footage as well. So it's based on square footage and kind of the complexity of the building, because as you can imagine, having to map a very complex healthcare space is a lot harder than empty conference areas. So it does depend a little bit, but it is on a square footage basis.
And then finally, just let's put our future caps on, in the future. Where do you want to see this going? What would be the ultimate vision for GoodMaps?
Oh man, the ultimate vision for GoodMaps. I would say, mapping the world. That's our goal, is mapping the indoors. And there's many different avenues to get there. Being able to have people map their buildings with the new iPhones, with the new LiDAR that's coming out, or consuming other people's LiDAR data, and being able to work together and share that data so that all of the indoors can be mapped. And so that's really our goal.
Love it. Thanks so much for joining. Really appreciate it. Congrats again on the big win, and we'll be found along with GoodMaps as you continue to build and evolve.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right. Congrats again, Evelyn. Really great job with GoodMaps, and looking forward to seeing you continue to expand all across the globe, it sounds like. great stuff happening, and congratulations on that win at CES 2023. And speaking of 2023 and CES, it was a great year to be there. Everything was kind of back. It's been a few years since it's been like that at CES. I think 2020 was the last year that it was kind of normal, right, before the pandemic hit. So it was great to see everyone back, and they were back in full force. I didn't get the exact numbers, but it was hundreds of thousands of people, over 100,000 people. Lots of folks coming through the Eureka Parks area. We had our team busy with working with the SBA and also with the CTA Foundation in the pitch competition, which we produce now for the 5th year. And lots of great people coming through, asking questions and learning more about how they can help their startup. So loved being there. And outside of that, I was busy with that, but also got to bounce around a little bit. We also hosted a coffee event for our community, the Startup of the Year community. So if you're part of the community, you're at CES and you joined us, appreciate you for being there. And if you didn't, we're going to do more things like that. So look forward to additional events at, I guess we could say larger events in the future as we look to try to bring our community together wherever we are. So looking forward to that. I did see a few things that were interesting at CES, lots of really interesting cars, but the overarching theme, I think, is batteries, because they're all battery powered now. Lots of interesting batteries. They're going to battery power your home, your car, your whatever. So look forward to that, as we're going to be fully powered up here in the near future. And it sounds like we're going to be running on batteries. All right. And that's the show for today. Appreciate you being here. Hopefully you enjoyed the discussions and learned something. And please do share it. We appreciate everyone that does share it. Sharing is caring. And, that's the only way we can really grow and get the message out there about Startup of the Year and everything we do to try to help entrepreneurs. All right. So if you have a startup idea and you want to get it going, today is the best day to start up. Not tomorrow, not the next day, today. And in doing so, I encourage you to join our startup community for access to support, expert advice, and all the resources you need to elevate your startups by simply going to startupofyear.com, or just go directly to our application and join right away today. Go to soty.link/apply. Again, it's soty.link/apply. And you can join and take advantage of all the different things we offer, which will continue to evolve and grow here in 2023. We're super excited about the year. All right, until next time, I'm Frank Gruber. Don't forget to hug your loved ones out there and have a wonderful week. And hopefully you're doing something fun this weekend. All right, good luck out there starting up, and have a great day.
Thanks for listening to the Startup of the Year podcast. Be sure to subscribe, and we'll be back with another episode soon.